Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Raposo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
And we just had Ann Handley join us too. And welcome to the book club.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
We're so excited that you're here. I did a quick introduction about you, told everybody that you're a content marketing expert, author, keynote speaker, writer, and LinkedIn top voice. But what's something else that people should know about you that we don't know yet?
Oh my gosh. I threw out my back 2 weeks ago and I'm in extreme pain right now. That doesn't relate at all to anything, but I just want you to know that this is how important this group was to me, that I pushed through for all of you to sit in a seat and join you. So
we are very, very glad, and we hope your back feels better. How'd you throw out your back?
At the gym. I was really proud of myself for having a personal best with a deadlift.
Mm-hmm.
And then I lived to regret it. So
Right.
I know. At least it was something cool. You know, it wasn't something like, oh, I bent over to I don't know, pick up something off the floor. That would have been lame, but at least this is kind of cool. So
It is pretty cool. It is very cool. And you keeping up with the strength training. I read about your push-up challenge there. So
yeah, exactly.
You're doing well. So we usually talk about our takeaways that we had from the books, things that spoke to us, things that made us think differently about writing, but also a Q&A with Anne as well. So if you have any questions for Anne, she'll be happy to answer them for you. So why don't we just start out? Leslie, do you have any takeaways from this book that you want to start out with? I'm putting you on the spot because I know you have to leave early.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Well, and I appreciate the heads up even more. I would say the most interesting thing I found is I still have my Elements of Style book that I received when I was studying journalism at NIU. I'm not even going to date myself, but a long time ago for my undergrad. And I still have referenced it forever. And I feel like this is like a combo. Your book is a combo of Elements of Style, an AP, little hints and things, but then also just some of the great takeaways of advice. I really like the chapter of, approach writing like teaching. I've been an adjunct, so I appreciated the thought of when I'm doing my own editing or, writing to make sure I'm looking at it in a different point of view.
Well, first of all, E.B. White is literally my author crush. I don't know if you knew that, but yeah, hold on, I'm turning really slowly because it hurts. Can you see everybody? Can you see Charlotte's Web back here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's I literally think that that's the best book about marketing that I've ever read because the whole setup of Charlotte's Web, and some of you probably remember the story, but it's about, a spider who basically creates a campaign around saving the life of a pig using the web. I mean, it's right there. And so, I love E.B. White. I love the Elements of Style. That's been sort of my talisman for a really long time, ever since I was in probably college too. And I still reread it every once in a while. And it's funny that you said that about just sort of that it had a similar vibe, because I had in my mind that I wanted to create a sort of updated Elements of Style, but for the modern marketer, so that was almost my model. It was in the back of my brain constantly while I was writing, the first edition, but also into the second edition too. So anyway, I just want to say that.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that comment. Brian, I know you have something on your mind.
Of course, I have a million favorite things about the book, and Anne knows that I have it very like well um, post-it noted. Um, so my favorite is the quote that I have on my monitor here: "To be an amateur, not everything you do has to be good, especially at first." So I like to stick to that. I would love, like a little off topic, I'd love an update on ASAP.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, so what Brian's talking about is I'm working on my next book right now, which has been torturously slow. But that's okay because I'm a slow writer and I own that, and that's fine. That's just sort of the way that I am. And so I've been working on this book for, no joke, probably about 10 years, but actively for, I mean, aggressively, actively, I would say for probably 2 years. And so it's called ASAP, as slow as possible. And it's about reclaiming agency and creativity in the age of hurry, especially with a backdrop of AI, with a backdrop of hustle culture and optimization theater and all the things that sort of define the modern workday, but also the modern life. And so it's sort of pushing back at that idea and challenging each of us to think about those moments when the slower, harder way is actually, better in terms of, delivers better results, delivers better ROI to some degree in some cases, but also just more joy. It just delivers a little bit more humanity and agency. So where that is right now is I'm working through the notes, the last set of notes that came from my editor. It's being published by Random House next year, February of 2027, because that's the crazy way that book publishing works. And so I'm working through the second version or the second draft of the book, I guess, which I should have done in the next couple of weeks. And then from there, it hopefully goes into production and it's available next year. So yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with that. I'm still slogging, Brian. Thanks.
Well, I mean, it's right in line with the theme of the book, right? So, making sure it's right.
True. It's definitely been an as slow as possible, book evolution, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm a slow writer and I completely own that. And it's worked for me so far. So,
Well, I'm so sorry about your back, and I can't wait to see you in November in Boston.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a good time.
Put a plug for Boston.
What's that?
What's in Boston in November?
Oh, so Brian is speaking at the Marketing Profs B2B Forum, which is our annual event focused on B2B marketing.
It's amazing. It's like a party and a conference all wrapped up in one.
All right.
It is actually, yeah. Honestly, it's my favorite thing that we do. And there'll be about where our goal is 1,000 B2B marketers. I'll be happy if we hit 900. But yeah, so we're sort of on track to do that. It happens every year in Boston. Brian was there last year for the first time, and we convinced him to come back this year too. So.
Awesome. It's good to hear. Good to hear. All right, everybody, just chime on in or raise your hand if you don't feel comfortable chiming in. But yeah, I always love I read the first edition of the book. I always love the ugly first draft, encouragement to embrace that. And quite frankly, being a B2B marketer and everything's always busy, right? And with the dawn of AI and me having ChatGPT at hand and using ChatGPT basically as my ugly first draft writing buddy. This put me back, to my roots when I went through journalism school. Just, put the ugly first draft in, set it aside, give yourself some time to let it linger, go back into it. And another thing that you said was to handwrite it out for the first time.
Yeah.
And I did that because I have to give a keynote speech at the University of Florida in 2 weeks. And this is an alumni speech about my story. And I could have just, wrote it down on a Word doc and use AI or whatever to help me refine it a little bit. But I really sat down and hand wrote it because of your book. I wrote it down, every chapter of the speech, every section was handwritten. And it was so good because I could draw on things from the past that I would have otherwise forgotten. I really had to sit down and I wrote it out and I scratched it out. I was like, wait a minute, there's another little piece that I should put in there that may be of relevance, right? And then I've been working on that for the last 3 weeks and I still work on it. Like I still edit it out, add things to it, take things away, right? And it's the beauty of writing slow. And I really appreciate you almost giving me permission to do that, because sometimes you're out there and everybody's pushing out content left and right really fast. Like I gotta keep up. Sometimes you just gotta slow down and
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that story. I mean, that's basically what my next book is about. And it's
Mhm.
about, finding those moments. Like you don't need to do that all the time, but as you described
Right.
it, like that speech is really important to you.
Mhm.
And so, it's identifying those moments when instead of just opening up AI, even though it's the faster, more efficient route, you sort of take that moment to pause and step back and think, wait a second, like, what am I actually trying to do here?
Mhm.
And so you just exactly demonstrated what I'm sort of trying to explore in the book, to give people permission, but also just a reminder that that sometimes that it really matters. It really matters because the results are just so much stronger. They're so much more
Mhm.
aligned with who we are as people, and it's important to us. And so I think that's a big piece of it there that I want people to remember and hold on to, because like you, it's like I open up LinkedIn and sometimes I just get depressed because
Mhm.
people are in there just like sharing their hacks and their tricks and their frameworks to do things faster and more efficiently, and outsource almost every piece of their life. And I'm like, oh my Lord, I
Mhm.
don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. Like, I'm not anti-efficiency. Of course, I believe that, AI has value and that going faster sometimes has value. But I think what's missing in the conversation is just that those moments when we need to step back and think about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what it can deliver for us if we adopt a sort of slower approach. So like you
Mhm.
just described, and analog
Mhm.
is a big piece of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Quick break to tell you about my new book that I co-authored with Rob Clark called The Attention Gap: Why Great Schools Stay Invisible and How to Fix It. We wrote it for higher ed marketers, enrollment leaders, and anyone trying to reach students in today's noisy, scroll-happy world. It's built from 130 plus episodes and conversations with higher ed leaders from this show, plus Rob's experience growing that tall family to over 4 billion views online. You unpack why the old marketing playbook isn't working any longer and what you can do about it instead to fix that. If your team is serious about closing the gap between great programs and real visibility online, this book is for you. Grab your copy of The Attention Gap today on Amazon. And now, back to the episode.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
One thing I've always loved about your writing, whether it's the book or the newsletter, is you have a very distinct voice and style and personality that comes out. I I knew what you sounded like before hearing you actually talk, which is an incredible ability. I think for so many of us working in higher ed, it's hard for a school to get any sort of personality out there. I think you look at higher ed websites and everything sounds the same.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to schools, or specifically to marketers at universities, to go past experiential learning and world-class faculty to develop that distinct voice that represents who they are and what they can offer to students?
Yeah, I mean it's a tricky one, but I think that's our challenge here in 2026, because I think as AI, even if it's not straight out slop, it's still flattening sort of what we're producing as marketers, and so I think it's really incumbent on us to show up in ways that convey personality and warmth and a little bit of our why, and why you should care about us and why you should think about us. And so I think ultimately for me, like when you talked about, how you can sort of feel or hear how I sound, like the reason I do that, the reason I lean so heavily into voice is because to me, it's not just writing, it's about trust. I want people to feel like they can trust what I'm saying, because I'm sharing a little bit of myself, a little bit of not necessarily my life, but a little bit of how I think about things. And I think that's
Mhm.
what's missing from a lot of marketing copy or marketing content, and not just specific to higher ed, but I think specific to almost any industry that feels like it can't, adopt a sort of more human voice and human tone. B2B marketing, for example, like Chris was just talking about. And so, I think that voice does matter. People don't connect with institutional jargon or mush. I think it's especially now. And so I think we do need to think more clearly about it. And just one of the ways that I do that is writing. This sounds so basic and so elemental, but I think it's so key, is just writing to one person at one time. Just thinking about that one person who you're trying to connect with, who you're trying to help. And that doesn't mean that you literally write it as a letter, but to me, that changes my voice. It changes the way that I think about things, because it helps me communicate in a way that's more intimate, not inappropriately so, but sort of intimate in a way that says, like, I see you, I understand your challenges, and I'm here to help you with them. Now, wrapped up in that, incumbent in that, is that, they need to know that they can trust me, which is why I talked about how, the foundation of voice, I think, is trust, is communicating in a way that is going to not just, show your personality, because that to me is just a shallow appropriation of voice, but instead to go a level deeper and say, like, how do we communicate in a way that feels like we understand your challenges and we can help you through them? Because ultimately that's all people want. That's why people will open up any email that you send or any newsletter, or why they'll look at a blog post or a social post. Like, that's all that they want. They want to feel recognized, and they want to feel supported or helped. Do you know what I mean?
That's awesome. That's great advice. I love that. Write for the one, especially for those of us who are on LinkedIn and who are trying to build their personal brand, and where a lot of posts are crickets.
Yeah.
But if you take that pressure off of, I need to go viral, I need to reach that many people, if you're trying to make one difference in one person's life, that's well worth your time.
Yeah. And I think the more specific you get, ultimately, the more universal it feels. And there's sort of a paradox in that, but I've seen it time and time again. Like, sometimes I'll write a newsletter that I think is just like, it feels so a little bit odd and kind of specific to me, but at the same time, it seems to resonate, because I pull out some elements that are shared human experience. So I think you need to think about things from your point of view, but also then flip the table. And this is where, like, just adding some time in between the writing and between the publishing, like you were talking about a second ago, Chris, can really help. So just adding some time in there and thinking about it from your point of view, but then, sort of swap places with your reader, like I talk about in the book, and think about, like, why does it matter to them? Like, will they feel seen? And I think about that constantly, like with everything that I write, whether it's a book or a LinkedIn post or a newsletter, because I really want it to feel like I get you and I'm here for you, and that, again, just so that people can trust what I say is going to help them.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Well, and I think a lot of this goes back to the fundamentals of readability. I mean, I think in higher ed, we have a lot of problems where people want to use fancy big words and, put all sorts of elaborate, it's like the matriculation into the program and the pedagogy of our immaculate faculty, and I'm sitting there, who are we talking to with that? I mean, do you even talk to your colleagues that way? Wow, your pedagogy is just, so I think that some of it, it's just always good to have these reminders to think about the readability. I have like the old school version, the first version of your book. I've had that on Kindle for a long time. And one of the things that I remembered from that one is just going back through and reading a sentence backwards just to kind of catch anything that you might have. Because I think a lot of the time when we're so close to the subject, we know what's going through our brain. We know what we were trying to say. And then sometimes you're like, wait a minute, I didn't convey that at all in what I just wrote, And so I think that having little tricks like that to go through and trick your brain into re-evaluating and looking at the readability of what you just wrote, because your brain is trying to fill in the gaps and the holes and, knows what you were trying to say to start with. So I have both. I looked at my old Kindle version and then I checked out the new version, from the library just to compare. And I'm like, oh, wow, it's like a whole new book in many areas.
I know.
Which is
know.
good because a lot of this stuff, if you read the first version, you're sitting there, wow, are any of these social platforms even still the same? I mean, and it hasn't been that long.
I know. I took the second edition straight down to the studs, and just sort of built it back up because, and part of that is just because I'm compulsive, I think. Like I probably didn't need to do what I did. A lot of friends who are in book publishing have shared that with me. Like, you probably could have just left the first edition and done a second edition or done a new book entirely, not a second edition, but done a completely new book, because that's sort of how much work and writing that I did, and adding and subtracting and just sort of taking everything out. But yeah, so now I forget what your question was.
It wasn't really a question. It was just commenting about readability and those fundamentals, getting your message through.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's so true. And I think especially, I mean, higher ed is like, it's so like trust is so foundational to what you do. And that when you start sort of throwing around these sort of big words, and your own jargon, instead of thinking about like, how is this going to land with a reader? It's like, I think you sort of can get a little too tangled in that, It's like, it reminds me of one time this is like one of my, I think I talked about this in a newsletter. I think I wrote a blog post about it too. But when my daughter was looking at colleges, we went to my alma mater. I went to Simmons College, which is now Simmons University in Boston. And I went there. No one's here from Simmons, right? Is anyone?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Anyway, we went there, and I was like really selling her on it, because I was like, wouldn't it be great? Like, it'd be so fun, like, because she's my little buddy. And I was like, how awesome would it be? And so we went through the whole day. It's like, how it goes. It's like, oh, they give you a tour and they give you lunch. And it was an accepted students day. And so they're sort of trying to get you to, to enroll. And so at the very, very end of the day, they had a panel of administrators and I was going to say executives at the school, but that's not what you call it. That's my word.
Administrators.
Administrators, yeah, it was just administrators, and I think like the dean of housing was there, and it was just sort of a sort of heavy hitting panel, and so there was an open Q&A session, and one of the parents raised their hands and said, "Hey, like I heard that." You have not enough housing for the freshman incoming class, or often you don't have enough housing for for incoming freshmen. And so she asked, we've heard about something called a forced triple, which is like, this is what she asked in the Q&A session, which is like, immediately you could hear like the gasp in the audience, because people were like, what does that mean? Like, that sounds so violent. What does it actually mean? And so the administrator, I think it was the housing director, just sort of like smiled, like kind of benignly. And she goes, yes, we call that the expanded occupancy units. Like, reframed it in this probably the most terrible way for the entire audience. And the reason it stuck with me and still sticks with me to this day is because, like, think about what she did there. She basically took something that was a reality that a lot of parents were worried about. Like, that was their truth. They're worried about sending their daughters there. It's an all-girls school. They're worried about sending their daughters there, and now she's sort of flipping it and making it sound like it's like nothing, not a big deal, when obviously it was. It is a really big deal, because these rooms are tiny. It's not like they can. Again, that's why they use the word forced in front of the word triple. So anyway, I mean, my point of telling you that is because that was, to me, it was just a clear failure of thinking it through from the audience's point of view and not your own point of view. Like, yeah, maybe you call it that, but let's talk about like the fear that that student or that mom or dad has with sending their daughter into that situation. And so I think if you can, that to me was a moment where she had an opportunity to sort of tell the truth and just be very clear about what the school is doing to address it. Or maybe it's not even an issue. Like, I don't know, I couldn't even listen to the rest of the rest of that sentence, because I was just so shocked that she reframed it in a way that made it feel like it wasn't a big deal when it very much was a big deal. And so rather than making the parents feel seen, she made them feel like diminished in some way for even talking about it, So anyway, hopefully they're not calling it that anymore, and hopefully it's not an issue.
You talk about being yourself, and when I write stuff for my blog or just for my own self-promotion, that's the stuff that ends up scratched out on the cutting room floor, for lack of a better term, because I'm trying to be abbreviated to write for the platform. And I can't keep the pithy one-liner. I got to drop some of the adjectives, or just I have to take me out of it to make it fit. So, and I like how you do that, and I appreciate that. So how do you find a way to be you, but not bloat your piece or dilute your message?
Yeah, I mean, I think, does this have value for the reader? And I sort of think about it from a couple of different standpoints. Like, does it help them build a connection and trust with me? Because again, they feel seen, or they feel like I'm understanding their problems and their point of view. And I'm talking specifically about like those sort of fun little pithy things that you throw in for yourself. And so I think about it from that point. What does this have value for the reader outside of me? Like, yeah, I mean, it delights me, but would it also delight the reader because they feel seen? And then, secondly, sometimes it's just like, I need to keep the joy and the fun in it for me. Because so sometimes, and this doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes, where I think, you know what, I want that in there because I need to stay engaged with what I do. I need to stay engaged with the writing, and I need to make it like, I need to be delighted by it as well. And so I don't overdo it. It's sort of I don't know, it's a balance, it's a judgment call, but I do put in a little bit of that sort of extra stuff just because I really like it. I posted about this on LinkedIn, and those of you who follow me there might have seen it, but I talked about how at the Oscars, Conan O'Brien told a joke and then it clearly did not land. And he literally just sort of took a beat, and then he said, well, that was just for me. And it really resonated with me, because as a writer, I think sometimes it is just for us. It's a way that we stay connected to the work. And even though we might, like, he knew it was iffy, didn't land, but it delighted him, and it delighted maybe 10% of the audience. And that was enough. And so, like, I hear what you're saying, Jeff. I think there's sort of a balance between putting in, most of it has to feel like it connects to the audience. And even if there's just some piece of it that you keep in just for you, I think you feeling engaged with the work is just as important as making sure that the audience is involved with the work. I used to say, and I talk about it actually in Everybody Writes too, like how obsessed you should be with the audience. And that is true. Like, I totally believe that. But at the same time, I also believe that we matter, that the writers matter. And people need to get a sense of, sort of your quirky oddballness behind the scenes, especially now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I felt like you put those jokes in, or the fun in, for me, not just for you, but for me. And I can.
Yeah, it's funny, Kat, because I get so many notes from people, like, after an email, because I'm so needy. I always want people to respond to my newsletter. Brian often does. It's like I often get a note back from Brian. But when people say, like, oh, I feel like you wrote this just for me, like, that to me is like the holy grail, so.
Mm-hmm.
When you put in that line, like, I wasn't expecting to laugh out loud while reading this book, but when it said 10% funnier, like, that alone just was like, I was like, that was perfect. Like, there's a statistic behind this is going to be 10% funny. So I thought that was really, I thought that was clever, but it did make me laugh out loud. For some reason, it worked.
I had a note from an engineer once who said, who basically was looking for the data behind that. It was like, can you back this up? And I said, yes, I can. Absolutely. You should come to one of my talks one day. I do a whole PowerPoint on how it's 10% funnier, not 11, not 9, but 10.
That was good. But for me, I read your first book years ago. And then for me, I'm moving now from higher ed. I was in it for 30 years working higher ed marketing. And now I'm working for myself as a coach for higher ed people. Oh, nice. And it's really interesting reading this again now, because I'm going from really speaking from my university's voice to my own, and making that transition of my own personality, of like putting fun into it. And because I would try that when I was at the university, and sometimes I'd get them to like say, okay, to a certain email or something with a little joke in it. But now it's all me. But I'm finding that it's interesting. It's taking me a little bit like, no, I can say that because it's me, like I don't have to like kind of put this through the administration to make sure that we're signing off on it. But
Yeah.
it's been really helpful. And seeing just your own personality in it too was great to see that in the writing as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome. I definitely tried to do more personality in the second one versus the first. Because the first one just felt a little bit it felt a little restrained, like when I went back and read it when I was preparing to do a second edition. And that's partly why I took it down to the studs, because I felt like it just needed, I felt I was a more confident writer by that point, which is a funny thing to say because, the first edition was only, what was it, 2014 or 16? I'm totally forgetting now. But I think it was 2014. And so it wasn't like it was that long ago, but I felt like I was more comfortable and confident as a writer. And so I wanted more of that to come through. And so, yeah, that was a big piece of why I did the second edition.
Christy, you had a comment, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I work for a large university system, and I thought your chapter on hot dog riding and some of the comments around that were really, really helpful, because that is something that I see very often. In the past, I've worked on as a VPEM or an AVPEM on a university campus, and it was a little bit different. But there's so many voices in one piece. Like we're working on a piece right now that it doesn't just have to have system buy-in, it also has to have approval by 13 of our 13 universities have to sign off on this piece too. And I get them back and I'm like, wow, we've completely lost the voice. We've completely lost, the where we're supposed to be going with this. So I really appreciated some of your comments and some of your tips for handling that.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. 13?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. 13 admissions offices.
Wow. That's crazy. How do you manage that?
Well, I'm new in this role, so I'm figuring it out. But I did frame when I sent it out for comment that it was for comment and we would take their feedback, but we would ultimately make final decisions on on the content itself. And part of the challenge is, these three want something this way and these three, that kind of thing. But anyway, I really appreciated your comments and your chapter on hot dog riding because I felt like I was living that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Good to hear.
Awesome. Couple more people here. Crystal, I know you write a lot for your work. What did you get out of it?
I thought it was like super insightful, like a textbook, but it was so funny and entertaining. It actually kept me like reading it. So it reminded me all these things that I'd forgotten or that I need to be refreshed of. But even the comments, like it's okay to only have one line. The rules that I like that you covered how the old school rules that we learned way back in the day, how it's changed and things like that. And then I liked all the things with the personality. I always try to think about yes, in a way to inject your voice, but not in a way that's like a vanity. It's like how, if I'm for this page that I'm writing, if I was sitting down with my friend and trying to explain this through them, how am I going to talk to them? I'm not going to talk all super institutionally and whatever. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to tell them what they need, but I'm not going to like be, flashy or salesy about it. So I just felt like it did a really good job of that. And then I'm a perfectionist and a writer, so that's chaos. And so I thought the first draft thing's perfect because sometimes I just need to just do it. It's gonna be horrible. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I just thought there was lots of nuggets in there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Cool.
To add, I did have the first version. I don't know what made me miss the second version, but it's okay. You have to start somewhere. And I liked how, like in the beginning, you talk about it's like part knowledge, part habit, part caring, but you really said part giving know. But I also appreciated that that's how your book was broken up. Like it was part knowledge, it was part teaching us a habit, and I can tell that you care. Like I can tell that this is your thing, this is what you do. And so I just really appreciated how in your intro it just fulfilled throughout the book.
Mm.
And particularly swapping places with your reader, because I always say that to my students that are like writing and getting to marketing and PR for the first time, and they just do the assignment to get it done. But I'm trying to tell them, like, think about the person who's receiving this for the first time. So this was like affirmation. So I appreciate that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I think, giving people, sometimes I find that when I say that to, even experienced marketers or even experienced writers, that it sort of just reminds them that, what they're writing literally has to connect with one other person. Like that's our job. Like that's the whole job, like full stop, it's like our job as marketers is to signal basically that they can trust us and that what we say matters. It's a way that they can start to either believe us or not believe us. And so that's often the way that I frame it, in the sense that it's not just about like sort of, checking off a task on a list, but it's really thinking about, does this signal like why people should care about us? Because literally marketing is how people decide what to trust and what to pay attention to, like full stop. And so I think your words and the words you use have so much to do with that, which is, very much the foundation of not just my books, but also just my entire career. That's what I've tried to think about obsessively.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what did you think? And sorry, Brian, I interrupted you. I didn't mean to. I just want to make sure everybody gets their word in. And I know that Chris is a big supporter of yours as well, Anne, and she loves your shirt.
Yes,
Justice for the
in fact, okay, since you brought it up, I was going to wait till the end because I don't want to take precious time from talking with Anne, but I did wear my Justice for M dash shirt.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So wanted to represent a little bit. I did have to explain it to a couple of
Chris, I love
coworkers
it.
why I was wearing a t-shirt at work.
I love it. That's so great.
So I wanted to make one comment, and not so much about your book, even though I absolutely love it. I use it more as a reference. I need to read it slow. If I just can't absorb so much at one time.
Yeah.
So I bits and pieces here and there, but your newsletters are a joy. And because I'm a grandparent, I love the story of Dot. And I feel like Dot should be a children's book. I really do. But now you have to explain to those people who don't know who Dot is.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, if you're not on my newsletter list, I've 3 issues ago. So I publish every other week. So this is like 6 weeks ago at this point, 5 or 6 weeks ago. I discovered a ladybug who was wintering on my upstairs bathroom windowsill, like literally just was hanging out there. And, I noticed it once, and then over the course of a few days, I noticed that this ladybug was just loitering, wouldn't move. And I was thinking, what are you doing here? Where'd you come from? What are you all about? Well, fast forward now, since then, this ladybug is still there. And I've sort of become obsessed with making sure that this ladybug makes it through winter, because I live in Boston where it's really cold. And, today it's not bad. It's inching towards 60, but, it's, for the most part, it's been a really brutal winter. And so just keeping this little ladybug alive and helping it thrive throughout the winter, I've gone to these sort of crazy steps to try to make that happen, because I am so vested in the life of this ladybug, to the point where my house cleaner came a few weeks ago, and or she's here every 2 weeks, and every time she's here, she's now checking on the ladybug too. The first time I think she thought I was nuts, because I was like, listen, there's a ladybug upstairs. You're going to see, like, I put out some dried fruit for the ladybug. I did a deep dive on Reddit, like, how do we keep this ladybug alive through the winter? What is this bug in my house? And then how do we help it thrive? I was like, listen, I put out a little like wet paper towel for some hydration, which is their preferred way of getting hydrated, and some dried fruit. Like, I was terrified she was going to vacuum her up. So I had to like give her the whole thing. And she was like, okay. Like, you weirdo. But now she's like, the first thing she says when she walks in the house is she's like, okay, how's Dot? How's she doing? What's going on? I'm like, okay. So yeah, I wrote about her in my newsletter, and she got such a reaction that since then I've been sort of giving regular updates from her. And
I feel
Chris,
it's like it's your own little Charlotte's Web
it's
story.
kind of is. Yeah, I know. It really is. Yeah, you're not the first person who suggested a children's book. Um, so we'll see. We had a day last week where it was really, really warm. It was, 70 degrees and that meant like the bathroom was basically like, it was like the Bahamas in there. And all of a sudden she had like 4 friends. Like first 2 showed up and then another 2 showed up and it was like a party. And then by that night, temperature dropped and everybody like skedaddled. Everybody left. And I was like, where's bugs coming from? So yeah, there's been a lot of activity up there. There's a lot of sort of little stories that happen right under your nose all the time, which is, a fun thing to remember for us as marketers too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for asking about her.
Haven't heard from Julie yet. Julie, you're a writer too. What are your thoughts?
Well, I also have the original version of the book, and now I know I need to pick up the new version after this conversation. But it also kind of serves as a reference book for me as well. So it was
Yeah.
just I read it for the first time, a number of years ago, and it was very helpful to refresh and just go back to some of the basics. But I do have a question for you. About you mentioned a few minutes ago, you said with the second book you're a more confident writer.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, I'm a freelance writer, so I have, lots of different types of clients. And so when I get a new client, I'm trying to please them, want to make sure I do a good job, and I feel confident to a level, but there's always that little, is this going to be the right thing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
is there ever a point where you just hit publish on that newsletter and you're 100% sure you hit the target and you know exactly what you're doing? Or is it always just part of being a writer, just continuing to improve and improve and improve?
Yeah. Oh my God, I love this question, Julie. I mean, I can't speak for all writers, but I think I can speak for a number of us. And for me, I never know. I'm always terrified before I hit publish that, I'm not hitting the mark. And I don't mean that because I'm insecure. It's not about that. It's just that I think if we care, and if we care so much that we really want it to land with the people we're writing for, you can't help but feel that way. You can't help but feel that way about it. And I honestly think that I used to see it as a weakness. I used to think, oh God, I'm not a confident writer. I don't have a confident voice. But now I actually see it as an asset. I see it as a strength because I think it helps me constantly level up and push myself further and further. I think when I said, like in the first edition, I wasn't as confident a writer, it's because I felt like I wasn't putting a little bit of that delight, like the question that Jeff had, like I wasn't putting enough of me in it in a way that felt like it could only come from me. I think if you read the first edition, like there's parts of it that I think are good, but that they don't feel quite as richly my voice as the second edition does. And there's a risk in that, right? Because when you have a rich voice in the second edition, some people really react to it badly. And I've seen that too. I've just learned to avoid the 1-star reviews on Goodreads because that's not good for my mental health. But I think there's always that risk. Like, I think there's always that feeling that you're jumping off a cliff and you don't have the parachute isn't open yet. It may not even be on your back at all. That wasn't intentionally for you, Brian, but I guess it kind of was since you're a skydiver. But I do feel like there is a sense that, I'm always scared, and I see that as a very good thing because it's not an imposter syndrome. It's really about feeling that I care very much about my work and I care very much about how my work lands. And I do see that as a positive thing because it helps me, constantly be challenging myself and constantly be leveling up. The other thing that I've learned though, since the first edition, especially, is that nobody really knows what they're doing. Like literally no one. And I feel like that's just the human condition. Like we're all making it up. I wish people would just be more honest about that. And once I realized that, it's not about really like having, like, it's not just about having no, like not caring the result. I mean, I think it's more just about understanding that, hey, I'm just trying my best here and we're all just trying our best. And there was some freedom in that. So that's a little bit about how I think about work generally, but specifically like between the first and second edition too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Advice. Yeah. Yannicka, you were the only one who hasn't had a comment yet, so I want to give you the stage.
I didn't want to jump in and talk over someone.
I
So
love that you put people on the spot here. This is great.
I know this is like class. I'm like, oh God, I need to
But you
have
can't
like
hide.
something because he's gonna call on me. No, but like I've been a huge fan for years. I used to get your
Oh,
newsletter all the time, and then one day I just got too busy and I just had to stop reading it. But this is a great reminder. I just signed up again.
oh, nice.
Yeah, so what really like spoke to me was the whole writing process and especially the ugly first draft because I'm
Yeah.
someone who edits as I go. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I am not that kind of person, but I kind of wish I could be. So what advice do you have for someone who really struggles with that? Like, I want things to be, perfect and polished the first time. And like, I'm the kind of person who will send my editor like a pretty polished draft. Like, it's not going to be something ugly. And
Yeah.
even for me, the first draft is pretty polished. And I'm kind of worried that, maybe I'm leaving something out there. It would be better if it was just really vomited onto the page, as you put it.
Yeah. Does it work for you, or do you feel like you are missing something in your process?
I mean, it works.
Yeah.
And maybe it's different, maybe if it were like something more personal, that maybe that might be a different process. Of course, this is, marketing related to lately it's been emails and things like that. It's nothing personal, so it hasn't been, yeah. But yeah, I guess it's worked for me. And I know you mentioned that, that this is your process, but it was definitely helpful for me to read through that and be like, man, I'm skipping like 5 or 6 of those steps and going from like first draft to like, okay, pretty much done.
Well, I think, one of the reasons why I'm like one of my best friends she's a writer also. She's a content creator and meaning she's in marketing. And she struggles with that issue of just sort of feeling like her first drafts have to be really polished. And it holds her back sometimes because she doesn't she has that sort of fear of the blank page. She has that fear of just starting because she knows she's going to disappoint herself. And so that's a situation where, once she found that sort of advice to sort of give yourself permission to write ugly before you even start to polish it. She found that really freeing. And so if it doesn't, but if it's working for you, then it's working for you. But you might just challenge yourself to like, what if I didn't expect it to be polished right away? Maybe one way to do that is to sort of speak a first draft and just like speak it into existence first and see if that helps you to surface things that you might not have surfaced otherwise. Or even just, putting some time in between, like giving yourself that first draft and then maybe going back to it and instead of relying on the first draft, maybe writing it over again, which sounds kind of insane. But sometimes I do that. Like if I feel like something hasn't quite hit, instead of trying to edit what I've already written, I'll just start over again. The author Lauren Groff, I don't know if any of you know her work, but she's a novelist. I read an interview with her. No, actually, it was a YouTube video. I watched a video, and she talks about her writing process, which sounded to me kind of crazy. But the more I thought about it, I thought I kind of do a version of that too, where she writes the first draft of her novel longhand, like on paper. Like an entire novel longhand is crazy, but that's what she does. Not with a lot of the description, but she sort of gets it all down. Then she tucks it away. She puts it in like a lockbox, and then she starts over again. And she said when she does that, only the best, strongest bits actually survive. Now, she's a novelist, and so it's like, what relevance does she have for us in marketing? But I realize that I actually do that a lot of times too, because sometimes in my first draft, even if it feels like kind of good, I realize that if I try to do it over again, I approach it differently. So not to create double the work for you, but you might just try it as an experiment and see if anything surfaces.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, everybody in. I see that sign behind you. It says fortune favors the bold. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I reached out to you because this hour was a blessing to all of us. And we thank you so much for you taking the time.
Oh
So-
my gosh. Well, if we're not connected on, LinkedIn, send me an invite and just let's just stay in touch. So I appreciate
Yep.
it.
We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks,
Next
all.
book club, May 12th, Joe Paluzzi, Burn the Playbook, May
that
12th.
guy.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Anne. Thank
All
you,
right,
everybody,
thank
for
you.
joining.
Bye.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you
for
so
having me.
much.
Bye.
Bye,
All right.
everyone.
And that's a wrap for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Education Marketing Leader Podcast this week. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with your friends and your network. And if you ever thought about starting your own podcast, now that you listen to one and you got inspired, reach out to me via DM. We'd love to help you launch your own. We'll take care of everything for you, the scripting, the strategy, the editing, distribution. All you have to do is show up, connect with your audience, and build your personal brand. So if you're ready for it, let's chat. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time at the Education Marketing Leader Podcast. Take care, friends.